Hi guys, welcome back to the podcast. Sorry that there wasn't an episode last week. I'll kind of go through that in a bit. I'm recording this on Thursday night, so this is the day after England lost to Argentina in the World Cup semi-final. I'll talk a bit about that first, because at international level, I don't even like support England. I'm a Northern Ireland fan because that's where I'm from. But obviously, we didn't qualify for the World Cup. But I have lived in England most of my life, and I am technically half English as well. So I wanted, I'm not like anti-England or anything like that. I wanted England to win the World Cup, and even I'm very frustrated about what happened last night. In previous years, like Gareth Southgate did a really good job, but probably took England as far as he possibly could have done. Got to two European finals, lost them both, and got to a World Cup semi in 2018. Um, but I think Southgate rightly was criticised for his decision making during matches and his in-game management. And then eventually he left, and Thomas Tuchel came in, and Thomas Tuchel was brought in by the FA to basically go one better than Gareth Southgate, get those in-game management decisions correct, and try and win the World Cup. Now, I didn't expect England to win the World Cup before the tournament started. I had France and Spain down as my favourites. And yeah, Spain beat France in the other semi-final. So it's for Spain v Argentina tonight, as you're listening to this, actually on Sunday. But yeah, so I didn't expect England to win the tournament, and I think the semi-finals is probably about right. But I think it's kind of like the manner in which England lost the game, and I think Tuchel has to take the brunt of the responsibility for it, because I don't think England played that great all tournament really, but they won matches in moments, largely down to Bellingham and Harry Kane. But yeah, last night's match against, or should I say Wednesday night's match against Argentina, England went 1-0 up through Anthony Gordon, and then it's almost as if England reverted back to their old ways and basically panicked and were too afraid of being 1-0 up, and they kind of sat back a bit. And in between, I read a stat this morning that in between Anthony Gordon's goal and Argentina's equaliser, England only had 12% possession, which is unheard of, really. And then also, Kane and Bellingham didn't have a single touch inside Argentina's penalty area. So they're two kind of alarming stats in themselves. I know stats don't tell the full story, but they do give you a good idea. But after I think 72 minutes, Tuchel decided to take Anthony Gordon off and put Ezri Konsa on. So he took a attacker off and put a defender on. Then over the following few minutes, he put more defenders on. He put Big Dan Burn on, for example. So England at that stage had six defenders. Now, on the pitch at the same time. Now, don't get me wrong, if you're going to park the bus and defend really deep, you do it when you get to no earlier than the 88th minute, okay? But probably kind of 90th minute into stoppage time. But Tuchel did that with 20 minutes of normal time remaining, which is absolutely insane in my opinion. You just basically inviting pressure from Argentina and basically giving Argentina an invitation to have a go. And that's exactly what they did. Argentina absolutely battered England in the last 20 minutes of that match. They hit the post a couple of times and Pickford made a couple of really good saves, but eventually equalised. And then they got the winning goal. And, Lionel Messi, outstanding player. But he was given acres of space, and you don't give Messi acres of space and make his job easy. You just don't do that. So yeah, I see it as a massively missed opportunity by England. Tuchel was brought in to be better than Gareth Southgate and try and win the World Cup, and he failed miserably at that. So, in my opinion, Tuchel has to go because he kind of went against his own principles and went against his own beliefs. There was actually a quote that he said in March 2025 last year when he first got the England job, saying that England historically have been too afraid to lose rather than go for it. And then he's basically gone and done that himself. So yeah, I mean, I've read that the FA are going to continue to back him, and I wouldn't like kind of willy nilly suggest that a manager gets sacked, but ultimately, I think he should. Um, Now, don't get me wrong, I'm absolutely not some kind of tactical genius. I don't have coaching badges. There's a reason why I work in a leisure centre and I'm not a football manager. But you don't need to be some genius to know that you don't park the bus with 20 minutes to go when you're 1-0 up, because 9 times out of 10 it's going to backfire, and that's exactly what happened. But I do think onto more positive things, I thought, Bellingham was magnificent all tournament, and he certainly cemented his status as England's best player and a world class player. I thought Elliot Anderson was brilliant in midfield, and actually, I'll give a shout out to Jed Spence actually, because when Tuchel first picked him in the England squad, I was like, what the fuck is he playing at? Because I thought that Spence was a terrible player. Whenever I watched him at Spurs and his previous teams, I think there were question marks over his like mentality and his attitude and his desire. But I just didn't really rate him as a player. And I thought, when you've got someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold, sat at home, why would you take Jed Spence? But when he came on against Norway, I thought he was fantastic. He caused Norway problems and he won England a penalty, which VAR stupidly got involved and disallowed it, which was a terrible decision. And then Spence started the game against Argentina last night, and he was really positive, caused them loads of problems, and was a threat. So, I'm more than happy to hold my hands up and admit that I was wrong about Jed Spence. I thought he did really well. But yeah, it's. I think the World Cup itself has been a really good tournament. I've really enjoyed watching it. The third place playoff on Saturday, I've got absolutely zero interest. It is like the most pointless game of football ever. I'd rather watch my pub team play. But yeah, Spain v Argentina in final. I think it should be a good game. I think Spain are the favourites just because they're so good at keeping the ball, so good defensively. But it will be a difficult game. I think it'll be similar to the first half of England v Argentina, where it's going to be very scrappy and it's going to look more like a WWE wrestling match than a football match at times. But I think Spain are the favourites, and ultimately I want Spain to win as well, because I think the way some of the Argentina players conducted themselves after full time was nothing short of disgraceful, holding up that banner. And, one of their substitutes, Valentin Barker, when Argentina scored their goal, he ran onto the pitch and didn't join in celebrating with his own teammates. He deliberately celebrated right in front of the England players, and I just thought that was really poor from him. Just no sportsmanship and no class whatsoever. And even at the previous World Cup, when Argentina beat France on penalties, Emi Martinez, who fully deserved to win the World Cup, by the way, but he also just behaved like an idiot, taking the piss and mocking Kylian Mbappe, even though Mbappe put 4 goals past him. I just think, yeah, obviously you're going to be buzzing that you've won a game, but do it with grace and humility and humbleness. I think there's a way to go about things, and I thought that they did themselves. I thought they let themselves down badly last night, and I think FIFA should punish them personally, because a couple of years ago, 2 Spain players got suspended for a match for saying that Gibraltar is Spanish. So by that logic, the Argentina players who held up that banner about the Falklands should also get banned. But I'm not holding my breath. I'm not expecting FIFA to ever do the right thing. But yeah, that's where we are really. But yeah, overall, I do think it's been a very good World Cup tournament. I've enjoyed watching it, and yeah, it's definitely obviously every other year you don't have an international tournament, and it feels a bit sort of void when there isn't one. And when it's when you get an international break during the season, I think most of the games are really boring, and I'm just not interested. But I think when it's the World Cup, it's really good. I was skeptical about expanding it to 48 teams because I thought that would reduce the quality of the matches and the teams, but actually I've been proven wrong again, because I think the likes of Cape Verde and DR Congo, for example, have done really well out of it. Produced some really good games. So yeah, all in all, I've been a big fan of the World Cup. Now moving on to running, the ballot results for next year's London Marathon came out last week, and unfortunately I didn't get in. A shock horror. But yeah, so 1.3 million people applied for the ballot. It's been extended over 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, but ultimately you only had like a 7% chance of getting in because, you know, a lot of the places go to charities and elite athletes and things like that. Also, if you're like running a certain time, you can pretty much get in. But yeah, it's a bit of a shame that I didn't get into London Marathon because I would have really enjoyed it. But I'll just kind of like keep trying every year and just see what happens. But yeah, congratulations to Nick who got into London Marathon and just back from injury as well with his ACL. So got plenty of time now to kind of get back into it and get training for next year. So wish you all the very best, pal. And I'm really pleased for you. I actually sent that sort of infamous "come dine with me" bloke to Nick when he told me he got the ballot. But no, joking aside, I'm really pleased for you. What I was going to say next? Oh yeah, so I've mentioned this several times, but yeah, Chicago is in October, on the 11th of October. So this week is week 1 of the training block, so that is in full flow. I did like an interval session today. It was like just over 8 kilometers in total, but the session was basically like a warm up, followed by 5 lots of 1 kilometer runs at like 4:35 pace with like a 90-second rest in between. And with it being the middle of the afternoon, really hot, yeah, it was like real like struggle city for me, but I got the job done. But yeah, I'm pleased to like get that training block well underway and get it started. And yeah, really looking forward to Chicago. What else was I going to say about running? I swear I was going to say something else. I can't really remember actually. But what I wanted to talk about today, a bit of a myth buster, and I don't want to be like stereotypical or prejudgmental, but and I'll try not to get into trouble, but hopefully you get the idea. I think when a lot of women first join the gym, and particularly beginners, I think a lot of them want to build confidence, which is completely valid. But I think a lot of them will say that they want to like turn up. Um, Not a huge fan of the phrase toning up, but when someone says they want to turn up, they're basically saying they want to lose body fat. And one of the best ways to do that is to do resistance training. In other words, like lifting weights and using resistance machines and what have you. And a lot of people kind of fall into the trap of thinking that lifting weights is going to result in them having really big muscles, and appearance wise, they don't want to look like that. Now, that is, you know, it's widely thought of, but in reality, it's not strictly true. Um, so I'm going to compare it to like cardiovascular training versus resistance training, because a lot of people think that cardio training is the way forward in terms of losing body fat and losing weight. Now, if you do resistance training, for example, then you will burn more calories post gym session or post workout than you will if you do just cardio. That is a thing called EPOC, which stands for excess post oxygen consumption. Now, what that basically means is that your body takes in even more oxygen than normal in order to help your body return to its like resting state. It's also like used to like replenish fuel stores, you know, like such as glycogen, and also like reduce body temperature and repair muscle tissues, which is like obviously a thing that you need because when you lift weights, you do create what's called micro tears in your muscles. But that's like how they build and repair, like with aid from protein. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. Like with the whole EPOC thing, because of all those things I've just said, your body will therefore burn more calories and continue to burn more calories for a longer period of time after your session as opposed to doing just cardio. So there's one reason why you should do resistance training if you're wanting to tone up, aka lose body fat. Now with that as well, the whole kind of like I again like I don't want to be stereotypical, but when like a girl says like, "Oh, I don't want to like build too much muscle and get bulky," so the thing I would say about that is that on average, men have 11 times more testosterone in their bodies than women do, and it's hard enough for men to build muscle and put on size when they do strength training and resistance training. So therefore, it's going to be even harder for women to do that. Now, don't get me wrong, if you do like resistance training, yes, you will put on a bit of muscle and therefore you'll get a bit of definition. I actually think that's a good thing. You can put on a bit of muscle, but without necessarily looking like that you're going to compete in world's strongest woman or world's strongest man or whatever it may be. You can still, like, I think the whole body image thing is like a big kind of like another topic really, which I could talk about on a future episode. But I do think like it is like it's a perception that's like not necessarily true. So yeah, what I'm saying is building your muscle mass is actually a good thing because, as I've touched on earlier, you burn more calories, but also you're less likely to get injured as well. And like in later life, it like reduces risk of frailty and falls and things like that. So yeah, we all need more muscle. Um, but like you can build muscle without necessarily looking like absolutely hench. And if that's, if you like not wanting to look absolutely massive, then don't be afraid to like lift a few weights in the gym and or use resistance machines. It's absolutely fine. And you know trying not to make things over complicated. If you want to like get absolutely massive, you need to be in a calorie surplus where you eat more calories than what you burn. If you want to tone up or lose body fat, should I say, you need to be in a calorie deficit where your calorie intake is less than the amount of calories you burn. So I hope that makes sense. And yeah, I hope you kind of stayed with me on that one, because I don't want to like tarnish like every single woman with the same brush, for example. But it's definitely a thing when I've done when I've done people's gym programs before in the past, where they've been a little bit hesitant to kind of like lift weights because they're too afraid of like putting on loads of size. But the reality is it's so difficult to do that. But you will actually burn more calories lifting weights than doing just cardio. Anyway, that is kind of where I'm at now, as in terms of like why I didn't do an episode last week. Basically, I'm just like really busy. Now that sounds like kind of a bullshit excuse when you say you're too busy to do something. So I'm going to rephrase that. I wasn't like too busy to do, and I basically just like prioritized other things. We last week actually, so me, Ryan, Julia, and Will, we went to the Lake District on Friday night and came back on Sunday kind of lunchtime, and we actually stayed in an Airbnb not a million miles away from Keswick, and we did like a big hike. We did walk in a waterfall, and we even went into Keswick, went to Derwent Water, and went for a dip in the water, and yeah, really enjoyed it. And then goes without saying, we watched the England v Norway match as well, and had a bit to drink as well. So yeah, had a really good time. But yeah, I'm also kind of like in the process of trying to get a mortgage and yeah, try and buy my own house effectively. And I've arguably made more progress in the last 2 weeks than I have in the last 10 years, to be to put it bluntly. But yeah, that's kind of one of my priorities, is to get that ball rolling. What that what I'm what that means in terms of kind of this podcast. So a combination of me trying to buy a house, me being very, very busy at work, and then also me prioritizing my training block for Chicago Marathon. I do need to allow myself to have a bit of downtime on top of all that. So I am going to carry on doing this podcast, but it's more than likely going to be once every 2 weeks rather than every single week. So yeah, don't get me wrong, I will carry on doing this, but like I say, it's not going to be as often as before. Now, I'm not saying it won't go back to weekly episodes. It probably will go back to weekly episodes once everything's kind of like died down a little bit. But certainly in the near, now and in the near future, it will be like fortnightly episodes. And I'm also conscious that I want it to be quality over quantity. I don't, excuse me, I don't want to like release a new episode just for the sake of it every single week. I want like good quality stuff to be able to talk about. I talked about kind of like the fear that some women have of lifting weights and strength and resistance training because they don't want to get too big, because I think that's like quite a common sort of misconception in gyms and in fitness in general. But yeah, I will be talking about some more interesting topics. It will just be every 2 weeks rather than 1 week. If there's anything you want me to talk about or any suggestions on how to improve then please get in touch, because I'm all ears and I'm always open to feedback and constructive criticism. And like I say, if you have a question that you want me to ask, then yeah, just let me know. Put it on the comments below or send me a message and I'll do my best to answer it. Okay, guys, thank you for your support. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe. I will see you again very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.